Welcome to another episode of Listen Loudly. My name is Joslyn Thompson-Raw, and today I am speaking with the incredible Logan Aldrige. He is a colleague of mine at Peloton. He's an adaptive athlete and just phenomenal all-round human being. His perspective, his athleticism, his desire to empower other people to move is infectious. I loved chatting with him. So much of the conversation resonated with me because he has his left arm amputated. That happened to him when he was 13. I have my big toe amputated. That happened to me when I was 7. So many of the things that he said, so many of the experiences that he went through resonated so much with me. And I'll go as far as saying those experiences for both of us have impacted how we coach and how we want to show up for individuals who may otherwise be overlooked. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll see you on the other side. Logan Aldrige, welcome, welcome, welcome. What an absolute honor it is to have you here on Listen Loudly. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh my God, Joslyn, the honor is all mine. Oh, this is amazing. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to chat with you. We don't get to chat enough over in London and me in New York City. I wish I could see you more often, but this is great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. No, pleasure. So I know you as just a phenomenal all-round being. But for anybody who doesn't know you, any of my listeners who don't know you, imagine anyone who would not know who you are. But anyway, for anybody who doesn't know you, do you want to just tell the people who you are, what you do?
I would love to. Yeah, thank you. First of all the same sentiments to you. What an incredible human. Us Peloton instructors, to be a colleague of yours and stand on the shoulders of the giants who have built this platform in the way I have. Every day is an honor, and I know that word gets said a lot and overused by me, but truly, the members that take the classes, the opportunity to meet and learn from all you all, it's been such a phenomenal experience. But some little context to that on who is Logan Aldrige and where does he come from? I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, a little bit south here on the East Coast of the United States, and I have always loved activity and frankly extreme sports. At a really young age, I fell in love with skateboarding, wakeboarding, surfing, snowboarding, all these wild activities. At 13, I had a boating accident in the pursuit of trying to become a professional wakeboarder. My parents were recreational water skiers, and we had a lake house a few hours away that I spent all my time at. So was training competitively, and just an unfortunate moment of the rope getting wrapped around my arm, sort of a freak accident, would be hard to replicate, but just in that spur of the moment, in that split second, propeller caught the rope, resulted in, long story short, amputation of my left arm at 13. And I was left-handed. And at that moment, I, frankly, like most kids or anyone, an unforeseen, unexpected traumatic incident, you can't believe it. And then I quickly, thank goodness to my mother and her words of care and comfort in a time of complete need, the most important time for these words to have impact. She said to me in the ambulance ride when I was contemplating that, my arm may be amputated. And I said, Mom, what if they have to amputate my arm? And she said, without skipping a beat, and it's a big mantra of mine at Peloton and who I am, is she said, Logan, it's just an arm. And while that phrase was very much meant to, in her own mind, I'm sure as a mother, as you could relate, Joss, with 2 boys, like you're just thankful that it's not worse, that they're alive, that you're okay. Okay, yes, if you lose an arm, Logan, okay, but it's just an arm, all right? If you're alive, if you're here, we'll figure it out. You've got another arm and we'll work with what we have. That statement, while I'm sure it did many things for her and her psychology in the moment, it had a massive impact right there in the moment in the ambulance for me. And what it was this first lesson in recognizing the power of perspective and what that can do to remind you of the abundance and the gratitude and the opportunity and the blessings in life. And I still, it gives me goosebumps to reflect, because gosh, this is almost a little over 20 years ago. And in that moment, that statement really did immediately take me from worrying, what if, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, to just saying, okay, if it is, then that is what it is. It will be, my left arm will be gone, and it's just an arm. And it gave me some power to control the unknown and the unknowable of what might happen next. So that moment really crafted and shaped my mindset, my maturity, because frankly, I was a little bit of a rebel and kind of an outlaw before that happened. I needed, not to say that, young boys need to lose an arm to, figure it out, but it woke me up, and it matured me quickly at a young age, that I'm not invincible, and that life is precious. And after that experience, I was so lucky, so fortunate to have not only supportive parents, but friends and family and my school, all of my surroundings and my community was so supportive through my recovery. And that made the world a difference. And most importantly for me to express to them, was that I'm the same me. Okay, yes, I'm going to be figuring out how to operate with one arm here going into, it was 8th grade, right before high school, and, these developing years of your early teenage years and everything. And I wanted everyone to know that it's okay. It's not a sensitive subject. We can talk about it. You can ask me about it. But also, I'm me. I'm the same Logan. Don't assume I'm going to need help with everything. I appreciate the gesture, but let's work through this, and I'm going to try to figure it out. And let's have fun. And so that perspective and that support, which I recognize I'm so lucky to have had, really propelled me into having the confidence and the encouragement from others to pursue hard things, to try wakeboarding again, or to go into playing lacrosse. I played lacrosse before and loved that sport. Really wanted to play again, but I would imagine that's a pretty two-arm dominant sport. And I just was so lucky to have the support and the belief from friends and family to try. And not to say that in trying I was going to succeed at things, but it was an opportunity for me to discover what my potential and ability may be. And a big message that I share and speak about is, from my experience in the hospital and thereafter for the next few years, were expectations and what that word means and what it does. And I believe through my experience that the way I started to define and understand expectations were that they were prejudgments that were placed on ourselves and one another. We place them on others to try to predict an outcome or understand an ability or capability. And through that, I believe that more often than not, sometimes expectations are limiting. I think oftentimes, whatever the example may be, in academics, you really struggle with a certain subject matter, but if you just get a B in that class or on that exam, you're happy. Who's to say why not? Why couldn't you achieve an A? And the message and mentality isn't to be a perfectionist or overachiever or always strive for excellence, but it's to be in control of your own potential and future. So I started to recognize that because I was left-handed and lost my left arm, there were some, standard and rightfully so, expectations being placed on me, especially in the academic setting, how I would go back to school. And gosh, this was 2006, so it was early years to have the idea of having a laptop or something. But teachers and even the doctors were like, Logan's really going to struggle to write. Writing with his right hand is going to take a while to develop. So maybe note takers in each class, maybe provide him with a laptop where he can also start to learn one-handed typing. That may be more efficient. And I was very grateful for that consideration. But the first thing I did on the first day of school is I went to the note takers that I was assigned in each class, said, thank you so much, but you don't have to. Don't worry about providing me with notes. I'm going to figure out how to write. I'm not going to use a laptop. While I was in the hospital, it was my mom's birthday, and I tried writing her a handwritten birthday card. And, it looked like chicken scratch, but it was just
Yeah.
my first example of what expectations could do in the way that they can be a limiting belief. And I could have just accepted and said, okay, thank you so much. This is my consideration, and this is the way it needs to be for me. But instead, I said, let me find out for myself. If this is true, if this is the reality, totally okay.
Yeah.
But let me discover that for myself. So a great quote, as a North Carolina boy, I love Michael Jordan. And a great quote from Michael Jordan I refer to a lot in this context is whether we accept the expectations or not, our outcome is dictated by ourselves. So whether we accept that the expectation of being able to make this final shot or not, we're in control of that outcome and that approach. So I think expectations play a huge part in my outlook, in my pursuit of human potential. And that really opened my eyes to this new world that I was put into, and the judgments that would get placed on me in a grocery store or walking down the street. And frankly, I was never sensitive to it. I was open to it, but I found it interesting how curious kids would be. Mom, what's that man's arm? What happened to his arm? And I found it such a interesting opportunity to be a welcoming representative of curiosity from that perspective, regardless of age and background. We're all curious human beings. We all want to know people's stories and background. And now I have this physical badge that I wear that instantly provokes curiosity of, oh, what happened? So I love to talk about it. I love to address that, frankly, elephant in the room a lot of the times. And I try to make that more normal in the approach, and not to speak for everyone with a physical difference or disability. It is not at all. But I do want to open up that opportunity in that space to be curious and have discussions. And through that, I started to recognize I've always loved exercise, fitness, and activities. And through now having to learn the use of this right hand and coordination and develop the strength and dexterity, I started in the hospital bed. I had my brother bring me one of those hand grip squeezing devices. And I would do
the grip
100
strength.
reps.
Yeah.
I said, okay, if I'm going to have one arm, this one arm needs to be as strong as it can possibly be. Let's get this forearm strong, grip strength strong. And then went into, total body fitness, how to make sure that my core was strong to manage having, one side doing most of the work or all of the work all of the time. And this started to open my eyes to consider other impairments and conditions that people may be working with or through in the pursuit of health and fitness and wellness. In that same context of it's just an arm, when I was in the hospital and after the amputation, they tried to save the arm. So I was in there for about 2.5 weeks, and they ended up needed to amputate after about a week. And that next week in the hospital, I remember at night I would get up to need to use the restroom, and I would pretend as if I had also lost a leg on the same side. So I would hop, holding the IV pole. I would hop on one foot to the bathroom, because it just, again, was just this practice in perspective of it could be worse. It could have been worse. And there are many people in life right now in this moment who are facing health or life traumatic moments or issues or crises that are far greater than this moment. Not to belittle the experience or the loss of the limb that I had, but it again just allowed me to have a lot of gratitude and appreciation for my circumstance and situation, and what I might be able to do through this, what often is seen as an unfortunate accident. How to make this one of the best things that ever happened to me. And I think that is oftentimes the power of our perspective. And through that, I started to become very passionate about fitness for myself as a kind of a test subject of how can I pursue these sports? How can I pursue this different type of fitness training for someone with one arm, and customize, modify, adapt to create the same stimulus or output that the able-bodied counterparts intended for this exercise or modality or whatever it may be. And that lens started to open me up to, okay, if I were a spinal cord injury, had no use of below belly button, and how would I approach fitness training? What would be a well-rounded approach to fitness training? Because I just was now, anyone who experiences a permanent physical impairment, a form of disability, you're not born this way. You're all of a sudden thrusted into a community, a minority of folks with disabilities. And it's very interesting because it's one of the few that anybody could find themselves a part of at any time in their life. Anything can happen. And in that moment, I felt that I had a responsibility and an opportunity to not only get to know and network with that community, but create in any way that I can. And not to think that I was the person that was going to make it happen, but I became obsessed with understanding what are the barriers to entry to folks getting to a gym or pursuing their health and fitness. And I started to look into the data and understanding the population and how significant it is globally. There's, in the world, there's 15 to 20% of the population lives with a permanent physical impairment. In the United States,
huge. It's a huge number.
Yeah,
right?
It's massive. In the United States, 1 in 4 have some form of a permanent physical impairment.
Yeah.
And why don't we see that in cities and in my background in gyms? And so this light started to become shed on, okay, there's an opportunity here to build a bridge between the facilities, the trainers, the industry, and those living with so many barriers to entry to just everyday life. But I believe fitness is a human right. We all deserve and have the opportunity to pursue our best physical selves. And I believe movement is medicine, and it's most needed. It is needed for everyone, absolutely, but it's most needed for those who have some form of restraint or impairment. And so this just became a massive focus of my years after high school into college, and then after college, once going into the professional world and business, doing the fitness stuff as a passion and personal just project. I made that decision to leave an industry and go all in on the fitness stuff. And that led me to about 6 years of coaching and training and competing in the sport of fitness and functional fitness all over the United States and in the world. And that opened up the opportunity to create a category for adaptive athletes, those with different varying abilities, to participate in a level playing field. And make fitness not just going to exercise in a gym, but make it its own community and sport and activity and place to thrive and learn and grow and educate.
Yeah, wow, I love it. And just so many. Listening to you, I'm quite emotional. I'm fine. I'm like, do I have a tissue? Because so much of what you've said, obviously, resonates heavily with me because I had my big toe amputated when I was 7.
That's right.
I was in an accident, and a garden wall fell on my foot. And I always, you sort of hear that, you hear the saying, what would you tell your younger self? And I always say, well, she guides me still now, because when that happened, I was in hospital for 2 months. I had 9 operations. They tried to save the toe, but it went gangrene and yada yada. So they had to amputate it. And I remember the surgeon sat me on his knee, and he was just like, listen, we've had to, because, I'd wake up from yet another surgery I couldn't see my foot because it was all bandaged up. So I didn't know what would happen from one operation to the next.
Right.
And he said, we've had to take your toe. And I was disgusted. I was like, well, where is it? If you just thrown it in a bin, like where? And of course, this thing was like rotting. So of course I had to get rid of it. But
I thought the same thing.
I was like, can I not keep it? How rude. Like that was my first reaction. And And then, and I remember him saying, so I did Irish dancing at the time, and I remember him saying, well, you're not going to be able to dance again. And I remember in my head just being like, well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Why? Yeah.
And and I sort of and it was interesting listening to you, because obviously you were 13 when it happened to you, and I've always said, for me, well, there was Santa, there was the Easter Bunny. Like, I was like, magic is magic. Like, whatever you want to happen can happen. And so my mantra became, well, let me just see. I have you as this surgeon and expert telling me that this is definitely not going to happen. Like, I'm definitely not going to be able to dance again. I'm going to have to learn how to walk again, and running is going to be questionable. But I was just like, well, no. And I didn't say that out loud to anybody, as far as I remember. It was just a decision I had made, like, well, let me just see if I can. And actually it's up here. It's on my wall. The actual words, let me just see if I can, was the gift I received from my producers on my launch, on my premiere run, because it's my, it's a thing that I say. And so I've always just thought it's just that kind of point in as a child, where I was just like, well, anything can happen, so this is not going to limit me. And I did, of course, learn how to walk again, and I ran, and I did dance again, and continued to dance until I was 19. But also, what I didn't do until, I want to say, about 5 or 6 years ago, I kept it hidden. I would wear like flip-flops and stuff, where you have to, stick the toes in. I'd always just do my next toe across, but I would always have one foot, my right foot, covering my left foot. I didn't want, completely opposite to you. I didn't want to be asked the question. I didn't want anyone, I don't know. It was just a natural thing that I did. And the first time I openly talked about it, was a friend of mine, actually, who was a former CrossFitter, Laura, phenomenal athlete, actually. And she had OCD. And it was the longest ever podcast I've ever recorded. It was like 2 hours long because we just didn't stop, talking. And she said, that when she has a bath, she got in and out of the bath like something like 17 times or something. And it was something that she didn't notice herself, but it was, the partner that she was living with at the time. He was like, so, the way you get in and out of the bath like 17 times, and sort of, and that, she then came to understand more about her OCD. And it was her being as honest and open and just like, yeah, this is me, that made me go, oh, well, let me talk about this thing that I kind of try and cover up. And I don't even know why I did try and cover it up, or I didn't want people to see, or it just felt like it was a natural thing. I think maybe I'd been teased or whatever when I was younger. And so I thought, what, let's just block that and let that not happen. And now, like, I don't care. It's out. Like, it's not a concern at all. But I still think that decision that I made of, well, let me just see what happens. I'm not going to listen to the expert. And as you say, how did you define expectations again?
Prejudgments that we place on ourselves and one another that typically limit potential.
Yeah. And so that's just stayed with me forever, to just see what my body can do, or just see if I can. And I just don't allow that limitation, because I didn't then and I won't now. And I think that for you, what your mum said to you in that moment, because I remember when the wall fell on my foot, my mum froze on the spot. Like, she was in shock. She just couldn't move, because her little 7-year-old was there like half underneath the wall. So obviously it was pretty, scary. And it was my dad and my neighbor who drove me to the hospital. But just to know that what your mum said to you, that shift,
instant, yeah,
is huge, because there could have been so many different outcomes, but in that very moment, at a very traumatic moment, you
Absolutely.
went, oh yeah, actually, yeah, that's right. It's just an arm. And as you say, giving you that perspective of, and also, you know, your mum saying it, that it could have been so much worse. And so to sit in that gratitude of, yep, this sucks right now, but it could have been, you know, so much more. And also what you said about inviting people into the conversation, inviting curiosity, because yes, we are naturally curious as human beings. And that kind of thinking about it from my view of wanting not to have the conversation, being a little bit ashamed of it, I think, that I just wanted to hide it until I saw somebody else was like, you know what, this is my thing. This is a thing that I live with, and I'm talking openly about it, that I was like, oh, you know, okay, maybe I'll do that too.
You know, also, I will say this. After I graduated, I spent a few years in the orthotic and prosthetic industry. I was obsessed with 3D printing in college. I was a nerd about 3D printing and additive manufacturing. And that's what I went to school for. Very not related to fitness at all, but business, supply chain management, and 3D printing. And in orthotics and prosthetics, I worked on helping bring that technology in to help with sockets for prosthetic limbs, a lot of lower extremity limbs. But learning through working with so many prosthetists and orthotists, the big toe, and I'm speculating here and making judgment as I should not. I apologize, but I wonder if, at that age, you know, through your experience, losing a big toe, it is drastic. It changes everything about your gait. The big toe is the most important digit on the foot for balance and stability. It gives so much feedback to your stability, and we don't know, it's just subconscious, just natural. And when you take that away, it really is way more significant than, oh, I just lost a finger, or I just lost a toe. It changes the whole process, as I'm sure you know this well. And I think you're very modest and humble about the accomplishment and the incredible how you have been able to manage with ease. And you are such an elite athlete, and you totally disregard. I bet most people don't know or recognize, or, you know, and not to say that you should be whipping your shoe off or something and saying, you know, look at this, I did that without a toe. But I just say it to say, it's incredible what you've become and done. And I hope that you find pride and power in just how much you have accomplished and done, because it's significant. And I remember even when we first met, you were here, I think it was like a holiday party. I don't forget when, it was so long ago. But it was like we were together for a summit or something. It was like the third and final night. Yeah. And then you told me about it. You're like, oh, Logan, by the way. I'm like, what? We're nub friends? This is amazing. And yeah, it's just, I just thank you for, first of all, sharing with me back then. And then for just being more open to, because your ability to talk about it, I think, is going to do exactly that. It's going to help someone else who is having that similar experience and is maybe a little bit just hiding or protecting or not wanting to share with the world. I say these are superpowers. I say you lean into these differences. We are all human beings. We're far more alike than unalike. But the differences within us are magic and can be incredibly useful tools, even in ways that we don't see it and know it. But to be open and to speak about it and to be proud of the skin that you're in and who you are and the body that you have, that's the message and mentality that I think is so contagious and important, especially in this industry of fitness. So thank you for being such a great representative and spokesperson, and I hope that you know that it's changing people's lives as well. You know, that's the stuff that I think is so powerful about this platform that I didn't frankly anticipate when I joined Peloton.
Before I joined, I was like, you know, and it was really my husband that kind of was just like, just go for, just see what happens, And I was like, I don't know, like it's, the camera's everywhere and it's kind of front and center. And I was way more a behind the scenes kind of person. I was at Nike prior to Peloton. I was there for 11 years. I did a lot of work with them and kind of recruiting trainers for them and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't know the impact quite as much as, we have, which we're so privileged to have. And I think one of the things I always remember about one of my very, very old personal training clients, who's a gentleman I was training for about 6 months, I think, or maybe a year or whatever. And he came to me and he was just like, Jocelyn, this will mean nothing to you, but I can tie my shoelaces for the first time in 10 years. And I was like, that you've no idea how much that means, because that's changed your every day and
quality of life.
Yeah. And whilst, of course, I'm in awe of, elite athletes and, they've got a team of people making them, enabling them to shine. But that your everyday has changed, like that's huge. And I think there's probably something that I said, I think I said that maybe in my premiere run. And I didn't know back then, 3 years ago, that I would hear stories like that all the time. And that's one of the pieces, so I get so many people saying, I'm sure you hear as well, like, I'm not a runner, I'm not. And I'm like, you just did my run class, right? You were just up on that tread doing, you were putting one foot in front of the other and you weren't walking, right? So you were, and, I'm celebrating a 30-second run as much as I'm celebrating an ultra marathon runner.
Absolutely. It's the same that's what I love to, yes, I think it's, not everyone needs to aspire to be an athlete or needs to view themselves to achieve their health and fitness goals to think that I'm an athlete or to be a confident and powerful runner. You don't have to identify or even define the idea of being a runner as an empowering thing. It is. I truly believe that. But you don't have to, and that's okay. But regardless, as I said earlier, we are all far more alike than unalike. I believe we are all athletes. Whether you see that in yourself or not is totally okay. Yeah. I'm not here to convince you that you are, but I am here to empower you to tap into that. If it's a narrative you've been telling yourself that you are not. If the narrative is you are not because of some perceived limitations or ability within you, I'm here to show you through your experience that you are. And I say all the time, we differ by degree, not kind. We're all athletes. We may be varying types of athletes, varying types of runners, but we're all moving in exactly that, putting one foot in front of the other, taking a direction and moving towards it is the pursuit of improvement, which we're all doing. Whether you're at an elite level and you want to gain the 0.1%, or you want to be able to tie your shoes and have a just better quality of life. That's the core of the driving fire within me in my experience of adaptive training. Because frankly, the principles and the concepts of adaptive training are just the foundation of being a thoughtful trainer and coach and helping people improve their lives. That's the core of it. Because to your point, what are we trying to do through fitness? I think in terms of functionality, we're trying to increase our work capacity, our ability to manage and handle load, whether that's strength or duration or distance or the stimulus we're exposed to in a run. We're doing it so that we build back a more robust body. We struggle in the workouts and we break our bodies down so that then we can recover and repair and come back stronger. It's incredible. These bodies, these human bodies are the most remarkable machines.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
And that's the the way in which the principles in which the education that I teach a lot of trainers on how to work with adaptive athletes, it's defining first to understand the athlete and the role of a trainer. Adaptive athletes, the way in which, from a trainer's role, from a fitness perspective role, to define it as a person with a permanent physical or psychological impairment, physiological, any sort of condition impairment, neurological, that affects work capacity and through observable and measurable limitations. So the way in which the person has a permanent, some sort of impairment, it's going to cause maybe some limitations, which would be observable and measurable in movement and exercise and fitness, that affects their work capacity. And work capacity is just another word for saying like total output. And what we do as trainers, and even as the athlete, to give some control and power over the pursuit of this, is we're not trying to change the impairment or the condition. That is what it is, and we want to make sure it's stable, it's not progressive or regressive, everything is okay there. But once we have that green light, the real goal of the trainer is to increase work capacity. And we do that by observing and measuring those limitations expressed, and maybe certain movements, maybe just one specific type of movement, depending on the impairment or condition. And then we build solutions. We find strategies, techniques that are safe, effective, and inclusive to create the standard, the normal version for that individual in their pursuit of whatever the exercise or the modality may be. And if we do that, we create, through the experience, an education for the individual. So now they know if I am a spinal cord injury athlete and performing workouts in my chair, and the workouts today in this class, in this Peloton class I'm joining, because I want to just be able to go to take any class. When they go to squats, I know that my adaptation is dips, for example. And you have a understanding why you're switching to that one, and there's reason behind it. And then it has the transference, the important part that, like you were mentioning, how, your client said, this might mean nothing to you, but I'm tying my shoes. These are the moments, those are exactly to your point. Those are the most impactful messages to hear. And through this lens of training, and when you apply this to everybody you train, it's really not meant to be specific to adaptive athletes. That's just the lens at which you kind of can grasp it and move forward. But the whole goal is to increase quality of life, increase functional independence. And when you help a seated athlete, spinal cord injury seated athlete, become confident with the ability to transfer out of their chair to a lower level or even to a higher level, like into a vehicle, you have drastically changed their independence and quality of life. And frankly, if we think about it functionally, what is that? That is what we all love to hate from a able-bodied perspective or a standing perspective, and that's burpees, right? And I love burpees because I used to hate them, so I love them. And that's what it is. But if you had to ask me, without going on too much more of a soapbox here and a rant, but the most important movement we should maintain for our entire life is the ability to get up when we fall down. Because what happens normally later in years in life, that's what sends us to assisted living and nursing homes. That's what sends us to a rapid decline in health, is falling. And that's typically from a little bit weaker bone structure, from less resistance training, lifting weights, and being comfortable with moving your body through space. So a burpee is just getting down on the ground and then getting back
up and down.
And if you train that for that concept of what the foundation functional movement pattern is of that movement, that is incredibly important for quality of life. And so it's just a specific example of the experience I've had teaching seated athletes and the confidence that translates far outside of their fitness into who they are when you gain that sort of ability or confidence to move in that way and have that independence back. So
absolutely. I love that. And just, so many different points there. One of the things that you said, is this incredible body that we have. Our bodies are phenomenal. And one thing I find when I'm teaching is just to get people to understand that, like, there are processes that our bodies go through that we don't even have to think about. Like, it just happens automatically, and they're these complex systems that just function without our having to even actively do whatever. And so I think, for everybody, just to first and foremost appreciate this complex miracle that we live inside. And then second of all, yeah, that piece to just improve, your quality of life. And certainly for adaptive athletes, just that independence piece, right? And you have to, from a coaching perspective, you know, it has to be that. It has to be, right, let's see, what our options are. Let's see what our solutions are, so they can then go and make those decisions for themselves independently. If they're in a workout, as you say, whatever the, if we're not doing squats, what are we doing instead? So that on the fly, they can make decisions. Cool, that's that. This is what it is for me. Moving it, that is huge in terms of, because even if you think of, an able-bodied athlete who gets an injury, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I can't. And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's see what you can do. And invariably in that process of recovering that injury, if they do it in a timely fashion, I will always tell people to have a timely recovery, not a speedy recovery, because I want for them to recover well. But there is so much that they learn even within that process, to how they work around that injury. It's huge. It's so important, and it's this big opening of perspective of here's what my options are here. And even, let's say if I'm coaching something like boot camp, and I'm giving options, and I'm just like, meet your body where it's at today. It's
Exactly.
I don't care if you think that you should be doing this. If this is where you're at today, this is what you're doing, because that gives you independence over and autonomy over your workout. You get to make those decisions for yourself without any judgment, without anything. It's hugely important.
And to your point on showing up and doing your best, I started to recognize that I would talk a lot about, especially, in wanting to like kind of create a scale of intensity or effort. And we talk about percentage, this should feel like 80%, or this heavy lift, want this to 100% effort here. I started to understand that the message might not be coming across the way that I intend, which is that when I'm saying 100%, if you're showing up today with 50%, you just give that 50.
Yeah.
You don't have to go dig in and wreck yourself to find a level of output that is just not achievable today.
Yeah.
And life, and especially in fitness, is not always just this chart and graph that just keeps going up and up. It is literally, like the science of it, it is literally 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That is the pursuit of improvement in fitness. That's how we grow, is we break ourselves down, and then the stuff that we don't even know is happening, the body does amazing things. And yes, we can help it with recovery techniques and tools and stretching and all the other things. But that is the magic that I think is so important to reiterate. Is I love doing hard things, and I'm a big proponent, and what I say a lot is we grow through what we go through. So let's choose the path of challenge, of the obstacle, but don't do so in the means to just try to destroy yourself. Do so in the means that through the difficulty and struggle will come out strong on the other side. But that doesn't mean that every workout or every approach needs to be, all right, I have to suffer now. I just need to suffer. No. And that all comes from, I think, knowledge. And the more experience and exposure, you become more mature as an athlete, as you train. And then you start to understand how beneficial it is to not gas pedal down all the time.
The whole kind of meeting your body where you're at. I think sometimes for a lot of people, if they are on a day where they're not feeling like they're kind of feeling 50% or whatever, and they may already be down on themselves for that, still that practice of meeting themselves where they're at is even more important
Yeah.
on that day, right? Because every time you do that, you just get better practiced at this is what I'm doing. You've got this dialogue with yourself, which I feel like so many people are disassociated from their bodies often, and that there's not this kind of, for me, this idea of trust that training builds. And obviously the longer you train, the greater your training age, the better you are at that, decision making for yourself. But if you have that back and forth, all of it gets, even the tough stuff becomes easier to decision make on.
Yeah.
You're just better at decision making in the moment when you're constantly, where am I at? How am I doing? Okay, maybe I can push a little bit here. Yeah, okay, actually that was cool. I was good there. A little bit more. Ooh, let me cut. You know what I mean? It's this kind of back and forth, which I encourage people to do so much.
Well, yes, to your point, I think what that's doing in a simple way is it's giving you control. Because when do we start to feel, from my experience at least, when you feel the most out of control or you're just confused is, from a fitness perspective, is that when you're like not recovered, when you know that, God, I am so slow today. I've hydrated well, I ate well yesterday. Why am I so tired today? And trust me, I'm notorious for deadlifting too heavy and my CNS being shot for 3 days and being like, oh, my eyes are in the back of my head. I've had all the coffee and I can't open my eyes. I'm notorious for that. And in that moment, especially when you're new to that feeling, and it constantly happens as we try to improve and grow, that moment is an easy moment to feel a little bit out of control. Like, what is happening? Why is this not working? I thought I should be getting fitter and stronger. Why am I so wrecked from that workout? And I think that's what you allow yourself to do, is you understand that, okay, I have the power to dictate what this effort's going to feel like today. Okay, I feel good enough to push a little bit, I'm going to push. Okay, that was a little too much, I'm going to pull back. It's a fun art. It's a fun experience, an experiment in never becoming complacent or just content with like, all right, this is what it is. This is how I feel. This is how these always feel. But choosing every now and then when the moment's right, saying, you know what, I'm going to level up. I'm going to go a little faster on this run. You know what, I'm going to add 5 pounds to this lift and try it this time when you feel great. And not to say, I mean, listen, I've been kind of that boot camp instructor before, not teaching boot camps, but in terms of like being a drill sergeant. I've definitely told some athletes, and it's knowing the indivial a little bit. Sometimes somebody needs to be pushed and say, hey, no, you're picking up the heavier weight today. You're picking up the heavier weight. But I say that with complete respect and understanding that you got to listen to your body, and you got to pull back when you need to pull back and be open to pushing when you need to push, because that's the core of growth, is just being uncomfortable, being a little bit uncomfortable, but not to the point where we're causing issues or we're causing burnout or we're causing a negative look on our own ability and performance. Even when it's the hardest workout of the week, I want that individual to feel empowered after it. You might be lying on the floor breathless, but I want you to feel empowered, like, wow, I just did that. And I think that's the mission of my classes that I teach. I always want to have golden retriever energy, welcome you. Hey, it's all going to be fun. Smiles, let's have a good time. But you might find in the middle of the workout or near the end, like, that was brutal, but we did it. We did it. And because you did it, you know you've moved the needle and you're pursuing something difficult. And the difficult things are the ones worth pursuing and worth chasing. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. Now, I do want everybody to do fitness. It doesn't mean it's going to get easy. We have to embrace the way to finding gratitude and peace within your own body, and then being able to give it to others and your mind. And that's so much of what the adaptive content at Peloton is intended to do. You know, the seated and standing adaptive content that I'm so fortunate to be able to offer on that Peloton platform can meet those individuals where they are just through the app. And you just have an app, and now you can get started on how do I move as a seated athlete? How do I move as an
Yeah.
above knee amputee? How do I move
Mm.
with a neuromuscular condition, with cerebral palsy, or whatever the case may be? And through
Mm.
that adaptive content on Peloton, the intention behind it, and I don't think I say this enough. I think I need to be a bit more vocal about this, but the core concept of it all is a universal design. So in terms of inclusion, I'm trying to make this platform inclusive in the sense that any athlete can go do any type of class they want to do. But in order to get there, we
Mm.
have to create this kind of exclusive category of fitness for the adaptive athlete so that they can learn the ways
Yeah.
in which to that empowerment through education piece. They can
Yeah.
learn through this fun environment with good music, good vibes, and a good workout how to find the right solution for them
Mm.
and their condition and their body where they are now, and how
Mm.
we reassess and retest that every now and then. Because while the intention of the trainer isn't to reduce the limitation, through gaining strength and stability
Mm.
and coordination and balance and power, you may
Mm.
find that your limitation does subside a little bit in some instances
Mm.
or some examples. And if
Yeah.
so, then your adaptations may change and adjust and evolve, just as we
Yeah.
all do as human beings. And so the concept of it is to teach them the tools, equip them with the knowledge to then be able to go take any class, go take an
Yeah.
Adrian Williams class, go take a
Yeah.
Joslyn class, and you know
Yeah.
when thrusters come up and you're a seated athlete, how to adapt, how to modify and adjust. It's
Mm.
not on the trainer then. You have the power and the knowledge,
Exactly.
and you're
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
control, and you're a
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
this global community, and that's what it's all about. It's not
Mm.
highlighting the differences, but uniting us together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, probably for so many people, and as we spoke about earlier, we were both lucky that we had this perspective of this is not going to be a limitation for us. We're going to see all the things that we can do and adjust accordingly if necessary. Um, I think for so many people, they'll be hearing, for the first time, these are your options. This is a process through which you can go through and make decisions for yourself. Like that's huge because they may have sat with the surgeons or the doctors or whoever who said, listen, well, you now can't do all of these things, but hey ho, good luck, that's it,
Right,
off you go. And
right.
for the first time, this idea that they can continue to build capacity to move into levels of, discomfort in terms of, pushing themselves and adapting and growing, like that just opens up a whole new world to
Yeah,
people.
it's not, it's in the professional life you might
Yeah.
have, in your career, in your
Mm.
relationships, with
Mm.
friends and family. It's those tough conversations, or when you really just, it's a Friday night and you were going to go out to dinner with that relative or friend, but you're so tired and you're like, let's just postpone. Well, just go and do the thing that in the moment
Yeah.
you might be like, I don't want to right now. I
Mm.
promise it always turns out better. And that's what I like. I'm really, really interested in this concept that like the way in which we find happiness and joy, and gratitude and abundance is by doing the things we don't want to do, by doing the
Mm.
things that are a bit of a struggle or difficult or create suffering. And I think that's it's not wanting more, but it's knowing that you have everything you need within you, and how to go in and
Yes.
rewrite that perspective, that way in which you
Yeah.
see maybe the unfortunate thing that you put the kind of the, I don't know if blame's the right word, but it's the catalyst to why you may feel the way you feel. How can we go
Mm-hmm.
in and look at that unfortunate past and turn it into the silver lining
Mm.
of how capable and powerful you are now and what you can
Mm.
accomplish? Or how can you
Mm.
package that and share it with yourself first, but then how you share with the world yourself,
Yeah.
to come across as powerful as improvement and as pursuing joy and happiness. It doesn't come from getting more things and buying the newer house. I think it comes
Yeah.
from all within. It's not the
Yeah.
outside things that we can get or how we can be told we're good. I think it's going in and saying, yeah, I've had some struggles and those things have shaped me into this person. And this person's awesome now and I'm going to do some great things.
Yeah.
And it's because of those. I'm so grateful that that happened. So that's what I say.
Yeah.
And it's not to be corny or cheesy, but I look back and 13 years old, losing my arm, best thing that ever happened to me. And I know people go, wow, that's a wild thing to say. But it's true. I truly believe that. I am so lucky and fortunate that that happened to me and that I've had this life, the opportunities, the impact, the reach, the folks I've been able to meet and connect with and learn from. I don't believe ever would have happened if I hadn't had this experience. So I'm so thankful and so grateful. And I wouldn't wish it on someone, but I just think that when things happen that we traditionally, whether it's medical professionals, society, or culturally, presume that that's tragic and horrible, we're the ones that are in control of what that means and what it means for us moving forward. So we can turn any negative into the most positive thing. It's just through perspective.
I think it really, outside of the people that you directly impact through your work, empowering athletes to understand their capability and for that to then, translate into the rest of their lives also impacts the people around them too, to not be so assumptive around what they perceive their limitations to be or not be. And it reminded me of I think it was in about 20 I was pregnant with Max, so it would have been about 2014, and I worked with Bebe Vio. She's a Italian adaptive athlete. She's a fencer, and we were doing this Nike workout together. We did this whole travel around Europe thing and worked with different athletes. And I had programmed a core workout for her. And I had to really sit and think, first of all, what I was programming. I didn't want to make any assumptions about what she could or couldn't do. And it was a really welcome challenge to me to then be able to have a conversation with, because she was like, okay, let's go. What are we doing?
Right.
And I was like, right, I need to, first of all, make sure I've programmed this right. And like I said, without any assumption. And she'd already been filming all day because there was a documentary being made about her. But it really challenged me to be mindful of what I was programming, how I was communicating to her, what my biases were in terms of what I thought she could or couldn't do. And it was great because I learned more than she learned from my whatever core workout. So it doesn't only impact, the individual themselves, but also everybody else's understanding of, what physical impairments are and how they impact people. So it's such a ripple effect.
When an adaptive athlete is present in a group fitness environment, it is ideal, because what it does to the leader of that environment, or the coach, the trainer, is it makes you a more thoughtful trainer. And frankly, what it does is it then makes you reassess the entire intention of the workout, the movements, the program, the purpose. And that's my whole background, and why the education we deliver is not to just certify trainers as an adaptive trainer, but as an adaptive and inclusive trainer. Because that inclusion perspective, and my background is being in a group fitness gym, teaching a CrossFit class where I have a ex-Navy SEAL next to a former collegiate football player next to a 67-year-old retired doctor next to Susie, who's 45 and an adaptive athlete, a combat wounded veteran, bilateral amputee, and then an individual with cerebral palsy. That's a typical group that I would train. And the way in which you adapt, modify, customize the workout, every individual, all those individuals complete the workout. At the end of it, you ask them all, this is what the intention was, how did you feel? And they achieve the intended stimulus, how it was supposed to feel on their body, what the output was supposed to feel like. They all worked out together. While the movements may look different, they accomplished the same physiological expression within the movements. What muscle groups, what movement pattern, what functional movement theme were we targeting? And if you can explain that in a way that's fun, entertaining, and focused on the fitness, every individual not only got a great workout in, as they should have, they did it alongside others that did it as well, but in a different way. And the power of that is so, it gives me goosebumps, because the hand clap and the cheering for anyone, there's no first and last. There's no, oh, I beat you. It's we're all suffering together through this difficult workout. No matter how fit or new we are, we're going through this together, and we come out on the other side having gone through this, I mean, frankly, like this battle, you know, this internal battle we had with ourselves, but we weren't alone. Someone was to our left and right. And that's the reminder I'd like to share with folks that are in a Peloton class, because oftentimes we're in our own space and by ourselves. And the power of those high fives on the leaderboard, and the power of creating community and accountability to make sure your other friend who's a member shows up and takes that class as well. It's collective suffering creates a lot of unity, and that's the kind of the final example of me being such an advocate for growing through what you go through. If we go through things together, we all grow together, and you know, gosh, misery loves company. So, you know, when you're doing those 100 burpees, there's somebody else out there doing 100 burpees too, cussing me out on the screen saying, God, Logan, you mother, this is ridiculous. We're all doing it together. We're all in it together. You're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah, I love it. And Logan, as you know, the title of this podcast is Listen Loudly, because I believe that you have to listen loudly to yourself in order to be heard by others. Is there, and I feel like there's a load, but is there a specific point in your life where you felt you listened loudly to yourself in order to be heard by others?
Oh, God, I love that question. Yeah, you basically could have just started the podcast with that, and everything I said basically answered that question.
Basically.
Because, golly, it's exactly right. I would just go back to saying that my whole story over again. It was definitely, absolutely, I listened to myself at 13, hearing, to your exact point, you know, like hearing these expectations and what they meant. I listened to that inner voice, because I didn't, when the doctor said that and the teacher said note takers and laptops, I didn't say, no. I heard them, but internally I said, I'm not going to do that. And it wasn't like my ego saying, no, I don't have a disability. It's fine. I don't need it. It was me saying, let me get to that conclusion. Let me get there and then ask for the help. I'm not too proud to ask for the help, but let me get to needing it or wanting it. And that's the first example I had of listening to myself first, so that then through that whole experience, I mean, frankly, that's why I'm here now. That voice became so loud in my head, and I continued to think of other examples and other instances where somebody else may have been told after a traumatic accident or injury that resulted in a permanent impairment, how they were told, okay, now this is the way it's going to have to be. After listening to myself, I wanted to be able to share and hear others and help them find solutions so that they could do exactly the same thing. Listen to their self clearly and loudly, so that then they can go be a catalyst for improvement and an example for pursuing your best self.
This is so great. I just feel like, and you're way more experienced and educated in the field of that than I am. But I know what we both have in common is, for everybody to take our classes and to feel seen and to feel like they're a part of the class and they're not being left out. And that is really the founder. I love training. I've trained for most of my life. I love coaching. I love programming. I love testing my own physical capabilities. I love all of that, and I could do it. I will do it for the rest of my life. But to be able to have somebody in your class and in the fortunate position that we are now, somebody, you know, on the leaderboard or taking our classes on demand, and then for the first time going, oh, like, I just did that. Okay, so that will never get old for me. Ever,
Exactly.
ever.
No, that's, you know, and you are such a thoughtful trainer, and your experience is absolutely, I think, just as qualified as my education and experience in adaptive training. And that's the thing I want to say, is that, like, it's not gatekept. It's not like you got to go take this course to then be able to help and work with adaptive athletes. It's just being a thoughtful trainer and having really clear intention and understanding behind what you're asking folks to do, and being exploratory with them in the conversations and the dialogue you have to get them there.
Yeah.
To know that that's, your intention is only to help. You're only here to help. That's the whole point. And I always say, last thing I'll say is, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And I hope that in a lot of the ways in which I talk about this, it's clear that I'm very passionate about it. And it's from a lens of not just trying to throw something together and want everyone to feel welcome. It's truly through a practical lens of safe and effective and inclusive solutions that allow for a universal design for everyone to participate, thrive, and grow together as a community. Because I think that is how we move forward. That is what we need now more than ever. And that is the most important core of pursuing your best version of yourself, is doing it with others and helping others pursue the best version of their self. It's selfless and selfish at the same time. The more you can help others become better, the more you become better. And so it is self-serving, but it's also improving the community and world that you live in and around. So I think we have so much more in common, as all of us individuals do. But from you and I both, our fitness philosophy and our training perspective, I will always run fast and lift heavy and just try to get fitter, faster, stronger, and better. I think it's such an incredible opportunity to be blessed with this one machine, the one remarkable machine, our bodies. And let's respect it, enjoy it, appreciate it, but also get the most out of it. So let's go.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And just one of the things you said there, you know, one of my other guests on the show is Dr. Dia Grant, and she's a sports psychologist, another one of my obsessions. And she believes that if everybody, she works with a lot of professional athletes, and she said she believes that if everybody, you know, was able to continue to you know, reach their full potential at any given moment, that the world would be a better place. And that goes to your point of, you know, moving through it. You start to understand, you go through so many processes during that actually you can't not be a better person as a result of it. And I don't care whether that is 1 minute long or, like I say, an hour long or days up, whatever it is.
Right.
If you're pushed to your edges slightly, and whatever that is for you, that improves you, that impacts your life and the lives of people around you. So, really, really cool. Logan, my gosh, thank you so much.
Honor's
Honestly,
all mine. Joslyn, this is
truly
so cool. Love it. Love what you're doing. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for having me. This is awesome. Love Listen Loudly.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.
See ya.